All right, this is Sam Taggart with Can't Knock This, and I'm here with Dylan Davis, one of the legends at Dish1. A little bit about Dylan and I. We actually served in the same mission in Bahia Blanca, Argentina, so we've got a little commonality there. And, yeah, he's one of the best regionals and senior management over at D1, so super excited to have you, Dylan. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about how you got started into the door-to-door space.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I had came home from a mission in 2008. Came home, didn't have much plans as far as what I was going to do. I didn't know much about door-to-door. I remember being my mission, my parents had written me saying my brother was in Puerto Rico selling alarms. I knew nothing about door-to-door, and so I was, like, wondering who would go to Puerto Rico, for one, and why are you selling an alarm in Puerto Rico? I knew nothing about it, didn't know who he was selling for. He happened to be selling for Apex at the time. But I came home, and anyways, a church leader from home said, "Hey man, I own a pest control company. You should come sell for me." He said the good guys make 20 grand. If you're average, you'll make around 10, and the bottom guys make 5. And so I was like, well, I don't know anything about sales. I've never done sales, but I got nothing to lose. So I'll come on and sell for you next summer. So that's kind of what got me started. I went out, started my first summer, sold in Boise, Idaho, did really, really well, and ended up being the top rookie that year.
Cool. So tell us about your first day. Were you one of those guys that started swinging, or were you the guy that's like, man, I didn't sell anything for 3 weeks? How did your first day go?
So my first day was interesting. I had only a couple hours. I was going to school, so I was like my first experience on the doors ever by myself. I went out. I was out there for only a couple of hours, and I remember selling about my second house I knocked on. And again, I knew nothing about the industry. There was no leaderboard, so I didn't know if I was doing good or bad. So I sold one, knocked a couple more houses, sold another one, knocked a couple houses, sold another one, couple more houses, and sold another one. And then I had to be done for the day, and I was coaching baseball part-time. So I literally, in a matter of 2 or 3 hours, had sold 4 accounts. At the end of the night, we were using paper contracts, so I had to run them back to the office. It's about 8:30 at night, dropping them off. And the owner of the company was also the manager. It was a small company. And he literally said to me, "Cool, man, see you tomorrow." And that was my experience.
Wow.
I didn't know, like, I was like, did I do good? Maybe everyone sells 10 of these things. Maybe I sucked. I don't know. Why did I only get 4?
So what's wild is I had almost the exact same experience, except my manager, he responded differently. He was like, "Wait, you just did 5 your first day?" And I was like, "Yeah. Is that good? Is that great?" He's like, "Yeah, normal rookies do like 1 a day." And I was like, "Oh, really? Like I just did 5 my first day." And you probably, and the way he responded, he's like, "Dude, it would be really good if you could do like 1 a day." And the next week I did 5 the whole week. And he like literally killed my momentum simply by telling me that I did so much better than I should have. And the fact that the owner just kind of took it as like, "Oh, whatever." I mean, how did that affect you moving forward? Like
again, I think what it did for me was it just taught me, like, hey, if you're going to go out there, you should be selling people. And I just didn't really think anything other than, well, yeah, I sold 4. I was out there for a couple hours. Obviously, you're going to sell. And that's what it put in my head from day one was, if I'm going to be out there, I'm going to sell. And I remember that first summer, I literally sold every single day except for 1 day my first summer. And it was one of the roughest days ever. But I zeroed 1 day my first summer. And it taught me a lesson from the very beginning, just that, hey, if you're going to go out there, you should be selling.
I've always had a quote that goes, "Don't knock to knock, knock to sell." It's kind of like a lot of people just go out there because that's what they're supposed to be doing. But it sounds like, the day that you didn't sell was like a catastrophe. It's like, holy cow, like there must be something wrong with me just because of your mindset.
It was just I feel super blessed just from that first conversation, and little did I know that would kind of shape my whole career. The one conversation or the one wording, "Hey man, cool, see you tomorrow," instead of a huge high five and you're going to be the best rookie we've ever had. It was just, "Cool, man, see you tomorrow."
So have you ever applied that to managing any of your reps now? Have you ever done that with any of your people that are under you now?
I have, and that's a tough one. I feel like I do that with some guys. Some guys can respond to that, and I have noticed that the guys that do well, and instead of me calling them and saying, "Hey man, great job every time you sell 4," if I just set an expectation with some of my top guys where it's like, "Hey man, you sold 6 today. That's impressive, but 4 is what you should be doing." And I have a handful of guys that I work with now that, they don't get a text message or a call from me if they sell 4 because they know that's their expectation. If they sell 5 or 6, I'm going to call them or text them and tell them, "Dude, way to go, good job." But if they know the expectation is you should be selling 3 or 4 if you're a top rookie or a top veteran guy. And I feel like even for rookies should be selling 1 to 3 every day. No question. If you're going to go out for 8 hours, I don't understand how you can walk around for 8 hours and not find people to buy.
Cool. No, that's a great mentality. Yeah, because I'm sure you learned a great lesson, so I'm sure you've been able to apply some of that to your management. So what would you say up until this point has been your greatest success throughout, back since 2009 to today?
I think I have a couple breaking points of when this job, kind of when I realized the potential and when I feel like I had my biggest accomplishments. My first summer, the day I sold 0, the next day, and so that day I sold 0, we were on a blitz, and one of the guys I was with had sold over 20. And we got back to the car at the end of the night, and he's like, "Dude, you sold 0?" I'm like, "Yeah, I freaking sold 0. You're right." And he's like, "Dude, I would have never thought you would have sold 0." And I was furious. I'm like, "Trust me, dude, I thought the same thing." And the next day comes around, and it's 7:30 at night, and I have 0 again. And I remember sitting in the car with one of the guys named Eric, and it was raining outside, and I'm like, "Dude, let's go home. I just want to go back to Boise. I'm over this place. I'm not like I've got 2 zeros. Let's get out of here." And he had sold 4, and he's like, "Dude, you can't go home with 0 again." And I'm like, "Dude, it's raining outside. I don't want to go knock right now. It's 7:30. I've got nothing." And he's like, "Dude, we're gonna go. You got to get out of the car." And so I'm like, "All right, let's go do it." And I got out of the car from 7:30 to 8:30 and sold 4 accounts.
Oh, wow.
And had like a mind shift, a breaking point, like I can do whatever I think I can do. And another big accomplishment or time when I felt awesome was 2011. I changed markets. I went to a new market in Dallas, Texas. And when I got out there, I was coming off of selling, 350 plus accounts. So I had sold a lot of accounts. And when I got out there, I had never seen so much competition. And when I would knock the door, I'd see these little crayon X's on every single driveway that someone else had already knocked that door today. And everywhere I'd go, there's some guy selling pest control on the same street as me. And I remember my first week selling 6 accounts and calling my wife. My wife had stayed home, calling one of my best friends from my mission and just being like, "Dude, I think I've lost it. Maybe I can't sell this anymore." And I was having like a breakdown, honestly. And I remember talking to my wife and my friends, and just they were believing in me and pumping some energy into me that I could do it. And my mind shift changed, and I went from just going out to knock, like you said, and literally changing to like, I'm going to sell people. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to be myself. And instead of being the same guy that comes by that's been by 3 times today, I'm going to have fun and be myself. And I ended up selling 42 my second week.
Holy cow, 6 to 42.
And it was the same streets, the same area, just literally me telling myself, like, stop letting all these other distractions and all these other guys worry you. Like, just be yourself and you're going to sell people.
But there's something to be said with that. Because how many times do you get rookies or reps come up to you and say, "Hey, this area sucks," or "Hey, I can't sell here," or "Oh, there's already been people that have knocked this neighborhood." But I mean, right there, what did you learn?
I mean, I 100% learned that it's whatever I believe is what I can do. I was studying this morning in what I call power hour, just self-development hour, and a picture of a fish with a shark, like a little goldfish with a shark fin on its back, and it says, "You are what you believe," or "You are what you see." And I learned right then and there that if I want to accomplish big things, I first off have to believe in myself. And I can't expect others just to believe in me. I have to believe in myself. And that's really what I learned right then is it doesn't matter if it's been knocked 4 or 5 times. They're buying me, and pest control or satellite or alarms comes with whatever it is. They're buying me.
Yeah.
And that's when I learned that.
A big mind shift that I had when I was knocking in neighborhoods where like, hey, you're the fifth guy that's been here this week. It's, well, all the other four guys weren't as good looking or as good of a salesman as me, and they probably weren't as fun. So probably why I didn't buy from them, but here I am, and that's what people buy. And if vets start to realize like people buy you, their numbers shift, and that's huge. No, thanks. So tell me about some of your failures along the way. Like, I'm sure it hasn't been rainbow and butterflies. Now you're managing 16,000 accounts under you at Dish1, 170 reps, it sounds like. What have been some of your failures, though?
Yeah, so I think one of my toughest times of just being in this industry was my fourth year. I switched from pest control to satellite. And I think a lot of guys make the change of something. They change industries at some point. And I changed industries, feeling that I had a better opportunity than where I was at for myself. And when I did that, I came over and got my butt handed to me. I literally just could not sell. And I was coming off of my best summer ever. I was on cloud nine. I was selling a ton of accounts, and I came over with the thought in my head, like, I can figure it out. Whatever it is, I can sell it. I don't need any training. I don't need much. I can just sell. And I was humbled really fast that I needed to be humble and needed to be constantly learning instead of just thinking like, I already know it, I can sell it. And so I went through a big learning experience where I don't think it was anything to do with the product or anything. It was purely myself, just thinking that I could sell anything without any training. But what I've learned is like, I needed to learn. I needed to be humbled. I needed to train. I needed to do everything I needed to work as hard as anyone else. My second summer, I had a similar experience. I thought, hey, I'm better at this. I can work less and sell more. And looking back, I'm embarrassed to say, but I remember being the guy that would, go sit on the couch after correlation for a couple hours and sit there watching TV or watching, I'm a big hunter, so I'd be watching hunting shows and thinking about all these trips I'm going to be taking in the fall. And then I'd go out from prime time and realize like, I can't do that. I can't try to sell more accounts in less time. And that was a big learning experience. And if I even joke with my wife now, like if she would have known that I would have been sitting on the couch, we'd have had issues. Luckily she was working at that time. We didn't have any kids yet, but she would have been mad at me. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my dad or anyone. I didn't tell any of my family that I was sitting on the couch because I know they wouldn't have been happy with me. And that was, that's one of the hurdles that I overcame, was just learning that like there never becomes a point in life when you just get to roll through the motions. I'm a big sports fan. You watch sports, like those guys literally put in more and more time every single year. You look at the Cavs, they just lost the finals, and then 2 days later on Instagram, you see LeBron James posting that he's in there working on his core, and it's just, I've learned through this job that you can never settle. You constantly have to be getting better.
So what is your why? What's your bigger purpose? Like why is this, what's the drive behind all of this growth and improvement? Like what's Dylan's why?
So I think at the beginning, my why was, provide for my family, set myself up for an opportunity that I didn't have as a child. And I didn't grow up in a poor home, but I didn't grow up in a family that my parents made tons of money. My dad's a tile contractor. My mom's a hairdresser. I just grew up in a family that we worked hard, and that I played college baseball. I wasn't the best, but I ended up being a starter because I worked hard. And my why at the beginning was just have a lifestyle, have the ability to hunt and fish and do a lot of things in the fall and not have to work while going to school. And I was able to do that fast. I made a lot of money quick doing this job because I was one of the top performers, and my why quickly changed, where not that I was making $1 million, but in my comfortable lifestyle, I was making enough money. And so I had to change my why, or it wasn't motivating me anymore. And so now what my why is just taking a 18, 19, 20-year-old guy and helping him go from making 10, 15, 20,000 bucks to watching some of my managers making 200 plus. And that's what's motivated me, is watching their lifestyle change, watching them be able to provide for their family in a way that they weren't able to do, or watching them change their mindset of, thinking, hey, I'm going to just do the job for a couple summers and get out and get a $50,000 a year job. And now most of my guys, Like if I said, hey, I'll pay you $50,000, they wouldn't even do it. And it's fun for me to watch just that lifestyle change for others. And that's what motivates me, I guess, is just to be able to say, like, yeah, I've been able to help a lot of young people continue and progress and make a lot of money and have a lifestyle that a lot of people don't get to have at a young age. And I think that's my big why, is just the lifestyle at a young age that a lot of people don't get to have.
So a lot of people, and I'm going to touch on that, because a lot of reps, you know, they want to move into management, they want to move into leadership and be the big dogs one day. And if they can have the shift to, in order to grow a massive team or region or division, whatever industry they're in, if their why can shift to, I need to help the most amount of people make the most amount of money so that they can improve their lives, then in turn, you've probably been extremely blessed to help develop those guys. And you have some cool case studies of actual people that you've turned into rock stars. For example, you're telling me about a guy, Eric Chatterton. Tell me a little bit about this guy.
Yeah, Eric's one of my super good friends. He came over. He had worked in the alarm industry for 4 years, and I met him at Boise State. Tried to get him to come over earlier, and you know, he was in a great spot there and with a great team and was selling a lot of accounts. And finally, after 4 years of him staying there, I got him to come over on his 5th summer. And what he was wanting to do is just grow, and he was having a hard time in the atmosphere he was in growing. And so I brought him over, and I've been able to watch him go from, he was making great money. He was, you know, probably making close to 6 figures in the alarm world, which was awesome money for his age, especially he was, you know, a young kid. But I was able to bring him over and help him grow and help him get to a level now where he's doing extremely well. He's got his own network. He's got his own teams. He's doing 5,000 plus accounts a year. But he went from 0 reps to 50 reps just by super hard work and him, you know, pushing and getting motivated and him, like you said, the mind shift change of, instead of doing this by myself, I'm going to help others succeed. Yeah. And it's been fun to watch him. And now he's doing really, really well.
And a couple other people you've kind of done that with is, one, we've already interviewed Chris Malik, for those that have already listened to his podcast. But, you know, he was also a Vivint guy that, you know, 2 years at Vivint, about a 70 account rep. And then, you know, you took him under your wing and turned him into a 600 account rep, right? You know, and top rep in the industry, and kind of just helped him develop into what he was today, correct?
Yeah, Chris is one of my best friends, if not my best friend. He came over from Vivint. He'd been there, like you said, for a couple of years. He had a great experience. He'll never say anything but amazing things about over there. Honestly, timing worked out right for him to come work with me. And that's really what got him to come over. But yeah, he was able to come over and go from 70 or 80 alarm accounts to over 600 satellite accounts. And I have personally watched him go from, you know, if you want to call it, rags to riches. And it's amazing to watch what's happened to him. I remember talking to him when he first came over to me. He had a couple $100 in his bank account. And I watched him sell 150 preseason accounts because he was literally knocking in snow and rain. He had his hunting gear on out knocking because he was just wanting to learn this skill. He came and saw my offices and saw some of the guys that were selling, and he's like, I know I can do this. And he had never been a top rep. He never had that mindset. And then me and him just talked so much. We hunted together, traveled together, did a lot of things together, that his mindset shifted to be thinking bigger than he thought before. And so he's honestly one of my best friends. He would do anything for any of you guys to be more successful. He loves helping people. And it's been fun to watch him go from, you know, rags to riches, and if you want to call it.
So I'm actually super excited to see you and Tim at Door to Door Con, just simply because, you know, you two are two of the guys in Satellite that I really look up to. And I feel like a lot of people from, you know, you've grown, you know, massive teams where Chris has sold massive amount of accounts. You guys make a super good duo, and his training and your training and just drive is just inspiring. So super excited to kind of pick your brains at Door to Door Con in some sort of fashion, you know. So
yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. It's me and Chris together. We find ourselves talking about work way more than what people would think. I mean, even when we're up hunting, sometimes we'll be just chatting about, hey man, what do you say when the customer says this? And it's just fun to think that, we have a really good relationship, and I learn a ton from him. I use something in my pitch every day now that I learn from him.
What is that?
And we just constantly, so he does what's called a heat check. And, it makes complete sense. And I wish I would have known about this the whole time. And so in the satellite world, when you become a new customer, you get the movies for free if you want them. When you sign up, it's a new customer promotion. Every company does the same thing. And so what he says, though, before he goes for a hard close, he gauges the sale by saying, you know what, I actually forgot to ask, if you guys, would you guys want the HBO, Showtime, Stars, and Cinemax? Those come free for new customers. Would you guys use those if I put them on the package? And then based on what the customer says, yes or no, they're ready to be closed. Yes or no is a win. If they come up with an objection, perfect. You circle back, overcome it, and then ask the same question again. But it makes so much sense when you're in the process that you just gauge your sale. You heat check it just like you would in sports. You throw up a half-court three-pointer and you heat check the sale.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm sure somebody could come up with a really good question to heat check for every industry.
Every industry, absolutely.
And it's almost like, in a sense, it's a soft close. But it's just, it's like, are you going to go for a hard close if you don't know their temperature? It's like, well, I don't want to close you when you're cold. I'd rather make sure that you're hot. So then when I go and ask, hey, give me your credit card info or whatever you do to ask for the sale, like, okay, they're ready for me. And if they're not, do some things that, like you said, overcome the objection and, get them a lot hotter. So that's big. So what are some of the things that you've done to kind of improve your game? Obviously, you weren't just like, you were good from the beginning, but, you obviously have had since 2009, I mean, over the last 9 years, you've probably done a lot of self-development. And you mentioned something earlier in this call, which was your power hour. Tell me a little bit about that and then some other things that you've done to kind of develop yourself or your daily routine or kind of go into that a little bit.
Yeah, so we as a company, I have a mentor here, Mark Cram, who's one of our VPs who kind of came up with this whole idea of 1 hour a day to develop yourself. And so I've tried really hard to implement it myself and implement it to my guys that 1 hour a day we develop ourselves. And so something I do most days, I'm not perfect, but I try to do it as much as I can, is I'm reading some kind of self-help book. I'm looking on YouTube at some motivational videos. Sometimes I'll go on Google and just search motivational memes and find some of them are funny, but some of them are motivational. And I do that almost every day. And then I do affirmations to myself. It sounds funny, but I talk to myself a lot. I tell myself I can do hard things. I tell myself that, that I can do this, or I can be disciplined. I just basically tell myself what I can and can't do. And I feel like that's something that bugs me, is when something is controlling my life or makes it so I can't do something. And so I constantly am telling myself what I can and what I can do.
So is that like a constant thing throughout the day? Like Brian Tracy says to say, I like myself, I love my job. I love myself, I like my job, or whatever, stuff like that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Do you have something that you do on a daily, like Chris does something where he has that whole phrase that he's got memorized, that it's like his mantra or something like that? Do you have any? His
affirmation statement or something?
His affirmation statement. Do you have anything like that?
I don't have one specifically memorized. I used to when I was selling full-time personally. What I do now, though, is I just basically, anytime I catch myself thinking like, that's probably going to be too hard to do that, or no, I don't think I could do that, or most of, whatever it might be, whether it's eating clean or not drinking energy drinks or whatever it might be, I just fight myself all the time when it's something that is controlling me. And I don't want to be controlled by anything, if that makes sense. And that's something that I try to teach to guys, is just be super disciplined, and you need to be the one controlling yourself, not outside distractions or outside things.
Cool.
And so I don't have like a memorized thing. No, I used to, but I don't really have one anymore.
So what's something that you believe that other people think is insane or kind of weird, or maybe something that you do is really just kind of out there? What's something weird about you? Yeah.
Well, I would say one thing that's just funny, I would say, is I literally am super superstitious about me wearing my lanyard around my neck and wearing the same pen, having the same pen with me every day. And then the other thing that I do that people know this about me, I drink a lot of water. But the only water I really drink is smart water. And I make my own bottle out of it. I take the big bottle and then buy the small bottle that has the squirt top on it and put the squirt top bottle, the lid on the big bottle. And I carry it every day when I'm knocking. And everyone that knows,
okay.
Yep. Yeah, everyone that knows me, it's kind of a joke. Everyone knows that I always drink smart water. Even my 5-year-old son, like when he gets me a treat from the store, he gets me a smart water.
So, did that stem from something? Where did that come from?
I honestly don't know where that came from. I like the feel of the bottle, and it fits in my back pocket perfect. And I've probably had a smart bottle with me for years. I don't know. I'd say every summer, probably starting since my first summer. I don't even know when that stemmed, but I've had one. I mean, I had the same bottle for 2 years, and then we went on a company cruise, and they wouldn't let us take bottles on there, and I was like super sad that I had to lose my same motivational bottle.
Wilson.
I was like, I tried to convince the guy. I'm like, dude, you don't understand. This bottle has literally been with me forever. I can't lose this thing.
That's awesome.
And now Chris Malik, I gave him I had a lucky lanyard, and he has my lucky lanyard, and then imagine that he became the top rep.
That's awesome. That's like finding the Michael Jordan shoes in the telephone wire, like Mike or whatever. Like, yeah, you'll get my powers. Take this. That's awesome. Hey, if you have an extra one of those lucky lanyards, I'm willing to take it from you. So
that's right.
I can take any luck I can get right now. That's awesome. So tell me about recruiting. Let's shift gears into, now you manage, thousands and thousands of accounts. I'm sure you don't sell as much. It sounds like you're out in Minnesota right now, or where are you at?
Right now I'm in Boise, but I have I've got teams across the U.S., but yeah, I do have a couple teams out there.
How many teams do you have right now?
Between me and Tegan, which we're co-regionals, we have 7 teams right now.
7 teams, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure a lot of your job is now leading leaders, right?
Yeah, helping the managers grow and develop.
Yeah. So let's go into a little bit of how you grew so fast and what things you did that really you felt made a big impact on your growth to get 7 teams. And then I want to touch on, a little bit more on leading leaders. Like, what do you do with your managers, on a weekly in the off season to help them grow, to recruit, to keep them accountable, to keep them excited? Like, I want to dive a little bit into that. So let's start with, what did you do to kind of really see some massive growth and expansion over your, time at D1?
Yeah. So I think if you're familiar with the term sink or swim, I kind of had like a reality check after my 3rd year of doing this, where it's, hey, I'm starting to get older. I'm married now. I'm either going to go all in or get out now. And that's what really changed for me, is just the idea of, you know what? I love what I do. I love the lifestyle I get to have. I love having, working hard for 5 or 6 months and having 5 or 6 months off every year. And so my mind shift changed of, I'm not going to just do this for a job anymore. I'm going to jump in and make this a career. And when I did that, I went, from 1,900 to 5,500 accounts. And I was able to grow fast because I literally treated recruiting like a full-time job. I was going to the universities 3 to 5 days a week, meeting with 5 to 15 guys every single week, and just constantly growing and constantly spending time on the phone. And that was a tough year for my wife and I, in the sake of, I would say she would tell you, like, I was never around. I mean, I was working a lot. I was on the phone constantly. I was constantly focused on work. And I set aside, I would say, like, just all the energy and effort that I had. To me, to sacrifice hunting, it sounds funny, but that's a big deal to me. That's my passion. That's what I do. And I said, I'm going to hunt less. I'm going to fish less. I'm going to put all my energy into recruiting, like I put all my energy into hunting. And basically, I would say, put your energy into recruiting like you would into your passion, whether it's weightlifting, hunting, whatever it is. If you do that, you will grow.
And when it's funny because a lot of people, they're like, oh, I want to manage a team, or, I want to be a leader one day. But they think that by just maybe talking to 1 or 2 people, they're going to all of a sudden somehow build this magical team. but it sounded like you're talking to 5-10 people a day. I mean, it's like knocking doors almost, right? I mean, you're pretty much knocking recruits, and it's like not everyone works out, but you got to put in that hustle and grind. I've grown massive teams and things like that, and one thing that people don't realize, it takes a lot of freaking phone calls, a lot of lunches, and a lot of butt kissing for a minute to actually get to where you are. You know what I mean? And people don't realize that sometimes.
Yeah, there's just a lot of behind the scenes work and a lot of kind of exactly what you said, like just a lot of effort. I mean, we all have our ratios when we're knocking, or at least I hope you do. That's something I would encourage you to do, is know your closing ratio. But same thing as recruiting. Like, you should know how many people you're talking to, how many people you're sitting down with, how many people you're closing, and then you'll know your retention rate. You should know that.
Yeah. So what are some things that when you're interviewing a rep or a potential recruit or whatever, what are some of the things that you talk about in that first initial meeting that you've found extremely useful?
So I have a couple questions that I like to ask them, and I think this will help other guys that are recruiting as well. Is I always ask them, tell me a time when you've been competitive. And I let them explain some things they've done in their life when they've been competitive. And then I'll ask them, so tell me a time when you weren't very good at something and you figured it out and got pretty good at it. Or tell me a time when you had something really hard in your life and you were able to overcome it. And I let them talk about it. And then I'll ask them, so on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being like way above average in everything you've ever done, and 0 being just you're the average guy, where would you categorize yourself? And I'll say, 5 is the guy who literally, you're the best guy on Tinder, you're the best guy at the gym, you're the best guy, literally you're just the best at everything you've ever done. And a 0 is just you're the average guy. Where would you categorize yourself? And then from there, I let them tell me, and if they tell me they're a 0, it's probably not a guy that I'm really interested in. Maybe it is maybe it's a guy who's just trying to be humble, but usually I want the guy to say a 2 or a 3, and some guys say 5. And then what I'll do from there is relate that to what success level I expect them to have at this job.
Cool. I really like that. So let's go into, okay, you hired the guy. One of the things that we talked about before the podcast is one of your specialties is training, and making sure that these guys are actually really able to get a spike and sustain that high level of performance quickly. Because the biggest issue in recruiting I found is if a guy goes 3 weeks without a sale, the dude's done.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's the guy's out. I mean, it's like, this isn't for me. I'm never doing door-to-door again. I'm just not a sales guy. And they move on, right? So it sounds like one of your specialties is getting guys to stick, retain, or else you wouldn't grow, and actually go produce at high levels. So what are some of the best practices you've put into place to really ensure that success for those reps?
So something I do when I was recruiting my own personal teams, and now I encourage my managers to do this, is I tell a guy as part of the interview process, before you can make a decision or we can make a decision on you if we want you on our team or you want to join our team, is I want you to watch a sale be done, and I want you to see what it's like. And so every guy that I've ever personally hired has seen me sell one or multiple accounts before they're ever making a decision if they want to do this job.
Cool. I like that.
And I do that because I want them, guys that have never done door-to-door, a lot of my network is cold recruiting, guys that have never done this job, and maybe not even Mormon dudes that knew much about the job. And so I'll take them out, and they think that it's going to be, the classic we're selling encyclopedias where everyone's going to tell us no. They don't know what to expect. And so I take all my guys on the doors before they ever come out for the summer. They've all seen a sale. That's something we encourage all of our management to do is, hey, before you bring a guy out for the summer, he needs to have seen 1 or 2, if not more, sales.
Cool. What about in like correlation meetings or, trainings and things like that? What have you found most effective?
Obviously, everyone does role plays. We do a lot of role plays. And I'm honestly a huge fan of a role play. I'm a huge fan of teaching guys to practice on their own. I remember my first summer, there was a guy that I was working with named Rob Rapp, an unbelievable salesman, just crazy good. And he would always tell me, he's like, dude, you got to have your pitch. You got to have that memorized. You got to write that stuff down. You got to get that memorized. And he's like, you need to be able to think quick and be able to react to people. And he would always try to coach me. He was quite a bit older. He was 37 and I was 21, I guess. And he would always say that. He's like, you got to write this stuff down. And so now I implement the same thing as I teach my reps, hey, I want you to write your pitch down. And we do that in some correlations. We'll spend 20 minutes and just have them write the pitch down. Every single guy writes the pitch word for word, what he's going to say, and just to get it ingrained in his head what he says. Obviously, it changes at every door, but you need the basics down memorized. And so we teach that a lot. We teach guys to write stuff down, and so that it ingrains it in your head a lot faster. And then I teach guys, I remember my first summer, that guy Rob would always tell me, when you're driving to work, man, you got a 20-minute drive, I want you to say the pitch 50 times over and over and over. So I still, like, to myself, hey, how's it going? I'm Dylan the route. Like, I have it memorized from 2009 because I said it so many times driving to work. And I teach.
There's also a piece of that is psychological that a lot of people don't realize. It's like, if you can say it out loud 30 times before you've even knocked doors, that first door is your 31st time, not your first. And sometimes it's like the scariest part is getting the first pitch out. That's the hardest part of the day. Well, if you get the first 30 out before you're even on the doors, it's only going to ensure confidence. So that's awesome. I like that. So let's talk about training your leaders now. What are some things, like, if you're, this is for like all regionals out there or people that are trying to develop an assistant manager, what are some of the things that you do with your leaders so that they can replicate and duplicate what you've done in the past, or, continue to retain and be good leaders?
So something that me and Tegan do on a weekly basis as regionals is we do weekly manager calls. So each manager knows once a week, all year long, he or she has a dedicated time that we're going to be calling them, and we're not going to chat about fishing or sports or anything during that time window. We're going to chat about work. They know that it's going to be about between 45 and an hour long that we're chatting about work, and we do it once a week, every single week. Obviously, there's times when guys are traveling, we miss it, but we try really hard to do a weekly manager call, and it's a weekly gut check, update, reality check, like, where are you at? And we're open with each other. We try to tell guys that the easiest way to grow and gain trust is be open with people. So if you're sucking right now, that's fine. Just tell me you're sucking and tell me why you're sucking, and we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna get past it. But don't tell me that you're working really hard when you're not working hard. And we have an open line of communication in that scenario where, guys, it's okay for a guy to come to me and say, dude, I just flat out didn't get it done this week. I'll be honest. I was lazy. I didn't work. I would rather him tell me that than tell me he was out there and talked to 100 recruits and didn't get any of them. Because then I'm like, man, dude, if you're talking to 100, you got none of them, like, man, we got to change something. And so I'd rather them just be honest. So we do a weekly call, and we're very honest with each other. And then we'll do probably once a month, we do a call with all of our leadership. So we'll do a big conference call with all the leadership on at the same time. And it can get hectic, so we try to tell guys to mute their phones and do different things, but we'll call out 4 or 5 guys that are really succeeding that month and ask them, hey man, tell me what you're doing. How did you go from 6 recruits to 13 recruits in the last 30 days? What did you do? And we do that about once a month. And then in the recruiting season, probably starting in January, we do a weekly call with all managers that want to get on. We don't make it mandatory, but we do, and it's some kind of development training. So sometimes we'll do like financial training, literally just how to budget, what a credit card is, what are frequent flyer miles, like life skill training. Another one we're training them on is, 1 week we'll do a recruiting call. We'll do cold recruiting 1 week. So we'll do 10 role plays and practice with, there could be as many as 25 guys on the call, and guys are learning from others that are having success. And we do that weekly in the recruiting season. And then during the summer, the same thing. We do once a week, we do a weekly manager call. And now we're starting a new thing where we're actually video conferencing in once a week and chatting directly with the managers.
That's awesome. No, I mean, and there's a lot of power behind, just celebrating people's, what they're doing well. I mean, just learning from each other. And then I really liked how you're teaching life principles. I feel like that's one thing that I never got, in my career so far, is people actually saying, let's teach you about taxes. Let's teach you about, frequent flyer miles. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just nobody talks about that stuff. So I think it's really cool that you're educating your leaders not just on how to sell more accounts or how to recruit more, but it's like how to be just better in life. I think right there you're adding more value to them, so that's what probably creates the loyalty there. And then one other thing that you touched on, I think a lot of people need to realize is the authenticity and the extreme ownership over their own results and their real struggles. Because in order to serve your leaders the most, if they can't be real with you, then you really can't serve them, right?
Yeah, no, I agree on that.
It's like, how do I really get there and really dig into you and find where I can add some value if you're not letting me? And so I think it's like if you're a rep listening to this, you probably should pay attention to, well, get real with your leader because they're really there trying to help you make more money. Don't hide stuff and let them help you. And if you're a leader, keep digging until they actually get real with you. Call them out on their BS. And I think that's what makes a good leader. So, no, I think that's huge. So that's awesome. So I want to we got to wrap this up. So let's get into the lightning round. But before we go into that, is there anything else you want to share that you're like, okay, I've just been itching to say this, or do you want to just move into the lightning round?
The only thing I would add, just a training principle you said, like that's something I feel like my strength is training guys. And one thing I would just say that we as leaders, you talked about, when guys go a long time without selling, it's really hard to make the next sale. And so something that I challenge my guys to do is to sell their first door every day. And so with that being said, what I teach them is I don't want them to knock very many doors before 5 p.m. I teach them it's like a battery. You only have so much battery in the tank. Don't burn it all before 5. So before 5, I might only knock 4 doors and probably sold 3 of those 4, or maybe 2 of those 4 based on the day. But meaning I'm targeting people that look like they're going to buy. And when I say like the mindset, like I don't know why, couldn't tell you why, but I'm looking at a house. I'm like, yep, I'm going to get that person. I don't know who it is, but I got a good vibe on that house. And I teach guys that you should be doing that as your first door. Because like you said, the first door is typically the hardest. And so if you can sell between one of your first 3 doors, you'll have a successful day. And so make sure that your guys and you as leaders, when you get out of the car, sell quick. Don't start just knocking a random house. Like I look literally for the garage doors open and there's one car that's parked in the middle of the garage. That's a person that's home, might not have a spouse. Like I'm going to go to that house right now and get that person. That's
huge, because it's like, it's always super stressful when it's 8 o'clock and you still don't have a sale and you're just in frantic mode. But you can sell so many more if you just get an early deal. And I know a lot of the guys that we've interviewed, they've talked about how they sell early. Like they get deals before 5, guaranteed. And that's how you go sell big numbers. So that's big. Okay, let's move into lightning round. So these are just quick, short answers. So what makes a successful salesman?
I would say discipline and motivation are the 2 things that I think a guy has to be super disciplined and just know that it's gonna be hard, but if he's disciplined, he'll get through it, and then just be able to motivate yourself. You can't look for someone else to motivate you every day.
Cool. Book that changed your life.
I would say The Slight Edge.
Never heard
Slight Edge.
I like it. Craziest thing that's ever happened to you on the doors?
Could be yesterday. I met a lady yesterday. I sold an account yesterday of a lady that super, super rich. She pulled open her bank account and had $31 million in her bank account.
You're like, yeah, I think you can afford the $130 package or whatever.
Yeah. She was like, all my kids are passed away and my husband's passed away. I'm like, hey man, Sunday dinners at my place are at 4 every week, You
make good friends right there. What skill should every salesman have?
If you made that easy, I would say learn to just talk to people. Being able to talk to strangers is a huge life skill that I hope my kids are good at, is just being able to talk to strangers.
Did you get a college degree?
I did. I have a marketing degree, but I think the most important thing, that my best skill set, is I talk to strangers. My wife will tell me lots of times, we'll be at the gas station, we get out of the gas station, she's like, oh, how do you know that guy? Did you go to school with him? Like, which guy? What are you talking about? guy that you were talking to for 10 minutes at the gas station. Like, oh, I didn't know him. He just had cool shoes on, so we were chatting about his shoes.
One word that describes success.
I would say hungry. Just being hungry.
What does it take to be top rep in the industry?
Extreme discipline and eliminating side distractions.
Favorite cereal?
Favorite cereal. I like those Honey Nut bunches of oats.
Oh, so good. With almonds and bananas?
Oh, yeah, the almonds. Got to have the banana or the almonds in there.
Solid. Apple or Android?
Apple for sure.
If you weren't a salesman, what would you do?
I would be a professional hunter.
I was going to say, I was like, I think I know this one. You'd go shoot and kill animals for fun. I love it. What gets you stoked?
In my family life, watching my kids succeed, just watching my son try hard things and watching him celebrate victories. And in the work world, it's the same thing. Watching people celebrate when they did something that they didn't think they could do.
Cool. And then last thing is just one simple piece of advice for the entire door-to-door industry, in a one-sentence type short answer. If you could tell the whole industry one thing, what would it be?
I would say we're all going to want to quit hundreds of times. Don't quit. It's going to be hard, but do not quit. Don't give up on yourself. You have to believe in yourself.
I like that. Okay, I appreciate your time, Dylan. This has been fun, and I'm excited to kind of cultivate this relationship. I'm going to put this out there. I've never been hunting. I have a razor, so if you need some wheels to get out there, I will be the provider of there as long as you provide a gun. So,
dude, I got plenty of those.
I was going to say, as long as, I bought a handgun like a while ago, and I think I've shot it once. So, but I feel like I do pretty decent. So,
well, next time I'm in Utah, me, you, and Chris Malik will go shoot.
Done. I saw some sweet YouTube videos of you guys just shooting targets like a mile away, and I was like, oh my goodness. Well, don't mess with those guys. So,
yeah.
So basically, yeah, I appreciate your time. You're definitely an inspiration and a thought leader behind the whole door-to-door industry. So I hope a lot can learn from this interview. So I'm excited to see you at Door-to-door Con.
Sounds good.
Okay,
thank you. Yeah, see ya.